Today I have a video about tips on crypto security. Okay, this is a newbie video for new people to crypto and who just want to kind of understand the basics and some ideals. And there's also a few tips in there that some of the degens might not know as well. But this is a pretty long video and I will put timestamps in the bottom, so you can jump around, but buckle in, it's probably a pretty long one. Okay, so first here we have a slide of the contents, what I'm going to cover. So the first things I'm going to talk about are wallets, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about centralized exchanges and things that have to do with those, the aliases of you, some of the project considerations, things about news, and then also about airdrops. I have a few links here to my socials. I have a YouTube channel where I talk a lot about DeFi and where you currently probably are. I have my Twitter account, feel free to follow me, and I have this secret sandwich NFT project. If you would like to support the channel, I would suggest you to check out the secret sandwich.xyz. It's the secret sandwich NFT project. You can come here, you can mint an NFT, or you can come and check out your NFTs. Okay, so let's get back to it. Okay, so here we are on slide 1, and we are going to talk about wallets. So there are different kinds of wallets that you need to consider. There are 3 major kinds, and they kind of work together in a way, okay? So they have injected. So injected are what most people refer to as browser wallets or Chrome extensions or extensions to your wallet. The most common one by far is MetaMask, and then you have some other ones that you might come across. I only use MetaMask. I don't use any of these other ones, so I can't really speak on them. I do sometimes use Wallet Connect, but not the way that most people would consider it, okay? So MetaMask is probably the most popular, but there are many, many choices out there, okay? And basically what this is you visit a website, you click on something that you want to happen, you want to put your tokens in somewhere, and then MetaMask pops up and you have to authorize it and pay gas, right? So these are pretty good, okay? Then we have mobile wallets. Now there's two examples here that I have, and that's Trust Wallet and Argent. I don't really personally like using mobile wallets because the things that I do in crypto are more about investing and things that I take good consideration before I do it, and then I do it. I don't really do things spur of the moment. It's not like you go to a shop and you have to buy something and you need to use a wallet. It's a little bit different than that, but there are cases where a mobile wallet can be helpful and you can be fast and quick with it, but I tend not to use them as much as I like the browser wallet. So if I were to recommend crypto to anybody getting started, I will always recommend one of these injected wallets and probably MetaMask. The last thing we have is what they call hardware wallets. Now, hardware wallets is a way to save your seed phrase. I will talk a little bit about seed phrase in a second. Save your seed phrase off of your browser. So it's another step of protection. So you would still use MetaMask, or you would still use these mobile wallets if you're using a mobile wallet, so you would still use MetaMask, but you would have Ledger or Trezor connected to your MetaMask. So your MetaMask would still pop up and it would still ask you to sign MetaMask, but then you would also have to press some buttons on the Trezor or the Ledger, actual physical buttons, and you have to plug them in. So these are very good, especially for large amounts of funds, stuff that you don't plan on moving too much, you don't need to change. It's just added security. So I would definitely recommend considering a Ledger or a Trezor, but they're about $100 to $200, maybe $300, depending on the model you get. So it needs to make sense, right? Another way to protect yourself is to produce a lot of wallets. Okay, if you produce a lot of wallets and you manage a lot of wallets, they're free to make. You can just keep pressing, like there's a button inside here where you just press account, add. So it says account 1 here, right? It would say account 2, account 3, and you can rename them and stuff and call them and just consider them many, many different wallets. The only problem with this is each wallet needs to have gas money, but it does segregate your funds onto different wallets and can protect you in some ways that way. Okay, and I will talk a little bit more about this idea when we go into aliases in the next upcoming slides. The next thing I'm going to talk about is, I'm going to skip NASA Save. I'll talk about that last. Okay, so we talk about seed phrase and private keys. Okay, so seed phrase is usually a 12 words that you need to write down. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's sometimes it's more depending on the wallet, right? But it's a bunch of words that you need to write down, okay? You can open MetaMask and you can show this, okay? However, this is dangerous in some senses. Like if someone's capturing your screen, someone is seeing your screen, and they see this seed phrase, then they have control over all of the accounts that are connected to this seed phrase. So one seed phrase can make many, many accounts, and each account can have its own funds inside it, and each MetaMask can have one seed phrase. So seed phrase is very, very, very important. Okay, so you want to protect this, and some tips or some ideas: don't put it on your cloud. Okay, don't put it in your Google Drive. Don't even put it on like your desktop or in your computer in a text file. Write it down on two pieces of paper. Write it down in a notebook somewhere, and write it down in a piece of paper that you hide somewhere in your house. Or you can even go so far as to split it up into two pieces and so forth. But so just keep in mind that this seed phrase is controlled out of all the accounts in that instance of the MetaMask. Okay, then we have private keys. Now private keys is the key to an individual account. So this is like, let's say you use your seed phrase and you make 5 accounts. Then you could give one of these these private keys to someone else who should be able to, maybe perform transactions for you. They will have access to all of the money inside that account. So obviously you want to give it to someone you trust, and not give it to like someone in like you just met on some, in some Telegram or Discord, or someone you just talked to, okay? So these things are very important. This is probably the most important consideration, is that you protect this seed phrase with your life. And then you protect this seed phrase or this private key as every dollar that's inside that account is protected with this private key. If they have this private key, they can access every dollar inside that account, okay? Now you can't give this to them without compromising the other accounts on this seed phrase, okay? Now the last thing I'm going to talk about is the Gnosis safe, okay? The Gnosis safe is a place where, it's called a multi-sig, and basically what it is, it's kind of like a wallet or a contract where you put your funds inside this safe, and then it requires several signers to sign it. So different accounts, different wallets, okay? So you could use several of your own accounts, or you could use other people's accounts, okay? So you could say your husband or wife, your partner, and your father or something. And then you could say, 2 of these 3 people need to sign everything that happens inside this. Now it's good and it's bad. Now it's bad in the sense that, like, if those 2 people decide they don't want you to use your money in the way you want, then you can't force it to happen. You can't force it. It needs to have 2 yeses out of 3, or maybe 3 yeses out of 4, or 3 yeses out of 6. All of these settings you can change, and you can add people, you can remove people from the Gnosis safe. It's not really useful for individual users, but as you can see, it does have an added level of security, and it does need to be talked about and recommended and understood, okay? Now, projects almost always have these Gnosis safes set up, and if they don't, then they're not doing it right, okay? Now, there's last thing I'm going to mention. You will find this message on the bottom of every slide, okay? It says blockchains are immutable and irrevocable. So when something happens on a blockchain, it cannot be taken back, okay? So it says take responsibility for your choices, for the choices you make. There is no big brother. Okay, so there's no one to call, no bank, no Visa company, nobody you can call and say, I made a mistake. Can you send me my money back? The only person you can ask to send money back is the person you sent the money to. And if you don't know who that person is, it's gone. If you send it to some contract or some address that doesn't even have a person who can't send it back, that money's gone. So you need to be careful. You need to consider this. It's like if you put money on the park bench inside the park, right, and walk away, and you come back and it's gone, what will you do? Maybe you can call the police. Maybe you can check the cameras. But here, there's nothing you can do. You can see where you sent it, but you will never get it back unless you know who is in control and you ask them, and they, out of the goodness of their heart, they send it back for whatever reason, okay? So just keep that in mind. And this message is at the bottom of every slide because it's the most important thing, okay? Let's move on. So next thing I'm going to talk about are centralized exchanges. Okay, there's several of them. There's lots of them around. Now these are the only three that I ever use. There is Binance, Kraken, and Bitfinex. They are big exchanges. They're pretty reputable. I like Kraken better than the other two, but Binance is definitely good, and Bitfinex, I use it for specific purposes. Okay, and there's not a lot I use it for, but specific purposes. Okay, so some people don't like Bitfinex because of its history and so forth, but I use it for, like I said, specific purposes. Now, crowd mentality. Okay, so most people look at these Binance, Kraken, and Bitfinex and they say, oh, which one's the biggest? Which company is the largest, has the most money? That must be the safest. This, you have to get this out of your mind. Okay, like FTX went down. It was a big scam, and it was huge. Okay, it was the second biggest, if not the biggest at some points, right? So you can't think about it like, oh, everybody's using this, it must be safe. That's not the case. You need to look deeper. You need to find out what's going on inside. They have this idea called proof of reserves that's kind of coming out, and Kraken has been doing it for a while. Binance started doing it. I don't think Bitfinex is doing it, but basically they try to prove that they have the funds that you've lent them. Okay, so that moves on to not your keys, not your coins. Okay, when you put your tokens onto a centralized exchange, you're basically giving them your tokens. They have control of them, and now they owe it to you. So you can consider it like you've lent money to your brother-in-law, and you're hoping he's going to give it back. Okay. So it's that level of trust, okay? They are regulated in some senses, but as we have seen, not regulated enough, and you could lose all your money if you leave it on a centralized exchange. Now, the benefit of a centralized exchange is that they work as an on-ramp and an off-ramp, okay? So what that means is they connect the crypto world to the banks. For the most part, there are other ways to do this, but this is the most common way. And this is one of the main use cases that I like for centralized exchanges is I have some crypto, I need some cash to pay my rent, to buy a car, to whatever reason you need real like fiat money inside your bank. The crypto or the centralized exchanges are generally the most user-friendly way to do this because they have a large amount of money and they can easily, transfer that money at reasonable fees, but they do make money when you off ramp and on ramp. Okay, when you bring money in and when you bring money out. Okay, the other thing that makes centralized exchanges is they have very good user experiences. Now, there's apps where you can do lots of trading. There's a desktop app. The user experience tends to be very good because it's a centralized company. Everything's running inside its own company. They don't need to write transactions to the blockchain. It's all saved in their centralized server, so it's fast, it's quick, and it's cheap. However, again, it's not crypto. It's kind of quasi-crypto. It's a bank that's letting you trade the crypto, but they're not your crypto. You're not holding them unless you constantly, deposit and withdraw to the chain, back onto chain, off to chain. Now, the best thing I can think of, the best analogy for centralized exchanges I've ever heard was if you consider them public bathrooms. Okay, they have their use cases. Sometimes you need to use them, but get in, do your stuff, and get out. So these public bathroom is a very good way to think of what a centralized exchange is like. Moving on. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is aliases. Okay, now aliases is basically you. Okay, you have to, in the real world, you have one email address, and it's all connected to everything, right? But in crypto, I have found that having many aliases or many profiles can help you to protect yourself a lot. Okay, so the first concept is the idea of social media. If you have different social media accounts, then when especially if your net worth is quite high, you can spread that net worth across different accounts, and then people won't really target you as much because they see, oh, he doesn't have that high of a net worth. Okay, so it can protect you against actual physical harm or targeting and stuff like that if you have these different social media aliases. Okay. And now also with project contribution. Okay, so in crypto it's very community orientated. They want the community to help out with the production of the development and the promotion and all aspects of the projects. So you can join these communities, and if you have different aliases when you join these communities, then your communities, you don't cross mingle them, so they don't know that you're also contributing with another community as well as this one. Now of course, like if you want to try to make money with your alias, then you might want to spend more time on one alias than another. Okay, now this one's very important. Okay, this is browsers and profiles, browsers and or profiles. What I like to do is I like to use several browsers, or if I have to, I would put many profiles, so many email profiles inside one browser, and then I would make a different MetaMask for each of these browsers. So then in my mind, I will think, oh, let's say for example, I used the first three. I would think, oh, my Chrome browser has a MetaMask, and that MetaMask is for really risky stuff. Okay, I'm gonna do more risky stuff with that, and I'm not gonna put a lot of money there. My Brave, for example, has a MetaMask, and it has its own accounts, and that's really low risk. I'm going to only buy blue chips. I'm going to put into projects that have long records of history of good, secure, like no hacks and good stuff. So lower risk, and then so forth and on. Maybe your Firefox is all your NFTs, and on different, again, different accounts. You can put lots of accounts. You can have a MetaMask on each of these, and they all have many accounts within them, and you can spread your money across. So now if you download some web page, or you go to some website and you accidentally click something, you might compromise one of these, but it's less likely that you're going to compromise all three at the same time, depending on, of course, what you've downloaded and what you've kind of clicked and so forth. Okay, now moving on, desktop and laptop. Okay, now this is another good way. Even if you let's say you have two computers and you divide one into like your degenerate use cases where you're clicking on lots of things, you're surfing the internet a lot, and then you have one computer where you don't do that so much. You just use it for money, for crypto, for banking and stuff like that, and so forth. Okay. Now, I forgot to mention one thing is that I also use my own profile for my normie real life traditional banking stuff. Okay, so different profiles for different wallets, different ideas, different aliases. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is Google Authenticator. It's an app that you can download onto your phone. There are some other choices, but Google Authenticator is the most widely supported. And basically what it does is every like 30 seconds, it generates different sets of numbers, and you use these numbers when you need to log into something. Let's say I want to log into my email. It's going to ask me for my email address, password, and then it's going to ask me for the number that's related. And you see it's all blurred out here, but maybe this would be your email address, and this would be your Binance account or whatever, right? And you could then, it's just going to keep generating every like 30 seconds a new set of 6 numbers that you need to have. So it kind of protects you. In order for someone to log into your account, they need to know your password, they need to know your login username, and then they also need to have control over your phone, okay, to get this authenticator number. Okay, let's move on. Now let's talk a little bit about projects. Okay, now there's a lot more that I could cover here, but I'm going to try to keep this quick and easy and simple. Okay, so when you're looking at projects, when you're thinking about putting your money into these projects, when you're thinking about actually depositing funds into them, not so much buying their token, more about actually putting your tokens into them in order to take use case of their project, of their service, right? Then there are some things you need to consider. Okay, so the first thing is, have they had an audit or not? Now, an audit is not a guarantee that this thing is safe. All that means is that some other team has been paid to look through the code and try to find out if there's any problems with the code, if the code can be hacked or not. Now, the level of quality of audits can vary drastically, okay? But they're usually pretty easy to read. They're not all very high technical English or, a lot of math or a lot of code talk. They usually use simple English to explain the problems and then recommend code changes in order to fix it. So it's worth reading an audit if you feel that you want to put a substantial amount of money into a project. Now, if a project doesn't have an audit, that doesn't mean it's not a good project. It just means they haven't bought an audit or they don't believe it for some reason. It's kind of like a starting point, okay, for a lot of projects. Get an audit and then start to, just get someone else to check at it, okay? Now, with audits, they also have another thing called a bug bounty, which is, I kind of think of this like an audit as well. So basically a bug bounty is an ongoing, there's money there waiting for anybody who finds a problem. They report the problem to the team. The team confirms the problem and then pays the bug bounty to those people who reported the problem. So this helps to get more people looking at the code to make sure it is solid, okay? Next thing we talk about is insurance. Insurance is pretty hard to find in crypto because there's a lot of factors. It's very hard to underwrite a crypto project because valuations it's very volatile, as well as the code and the service and the industry is pretty young. So there's a lot of risk and insurance can be kind of expensive. However, there are some projects that do offer insurance on other projects. So you can look into it and ask, does this project have any insurance opportunities, if that's something you want to know? And usually what they would insure against is hacking. Somebody else hacks this project, steals your money, then you usually get paid out. You make a mistake, there's no insurance for this, okay? Now, a security team. Another question to ask is, does this project have a security team? Are they maintaining security, or are they just going with the idea that audits are enough? So like I said, audits are kind of the start point usually. And do they have a security team, or have they hired a security team, or perhaps is the audit an ongoing audit where they will return and check code and report? So there are different kinds of security teams, but does your project have a security mindset? Are they worried about security? Okay. Communities. The community is very good. There's a lot of community members help out. A lot of community members own assets or own some of the tokens of this project, and they're willing to look at things deeper. So as the community grows, it tends to have more people looking at the code, checking for problems. If the community is shrinking, then this is something you need to consider, is there a problem? Why is the community shrinking? Is it purely social, or is it because some people have found something and they want to get out? Okay. The next thing is a track record. Does the community have a good track record, or does the team have a good track record? Sometimes it's very hard because teams tend to go anon. When they open a new project, they don't use their former alias, because multiple aliases is also a good thing for them, right? So sometimes they don't transfer their aliases over. So it's a new project and you don't know who the devs are. But if you can find out who the devs are, then you can kind of see, does it have a good track record? Now, another idea is the actual project itself. Has this project been on the blockchain for a long time with a lot of money inside it? If that's the case, then that means there has been hackers looking at it, trying to find holes, and they haven't found any yet. So that doesn't mean there is no holes, but it does reduce the risk, okay? Now, the last thing, I'm sorry, I skipped over immutable and proxies. So this is basically, can the team change the contracts? Some projects are completely immutable. They're on the blockchain. They can't be changed. The code is there. It's solid. It's been tested. It's, basically it's there and nothing can be changed. There's no trust, okay? There's no need to trust the people who are running it, the team, because they can't change it. There are several projects that are like this in DeFi as it is. Now, the other idea is proxies. Now, proxies are upgradable contracts. A lot of projects are now using proxies and upgradable contracts, so that basically most of the time your funds are in immutable contracts. However, there are peripheral things on the sides where they want to be able to change things as things happen. Maybe there's a panic button or some sort of like upgrade because they have something on the roadmap they want to change, but they haven't tested it enough, but they want to have the project live. So, or even after the project's live, the community has decided, let's make an improvement here or there or here, right? So are the contracts immutable or are they upgradable? This is something that you should consider, because if they're upgradable, there is a risk factor there to calculate and to think about, right? Because now you're trusting that the team is not going to change the contracts to their favor and do something malicious. Okay. Now the last thing is restricted interactions. Okay. DeFi, there's a word we call in DeFi, we call DeFi Legos, because lots of projects, they connect together, they work together. Like there's a project that's built on top of another project. This project comes out first, and then that project comes out second, and makes the user experience easier or better yield than the other one. So these projects that come out, the second ones, sometimes they have restricted interactions. Like you can only use this project to interact with that project, not any project, okay? And this can help you to reduce your risk a little bit, because at least those guys, those coders, those teams, that community has trust in the code of the first community, of the first project. So you can kind of use this as a way to understand that, things are less dangerous here because they only let the money to go to certain other projects, okay? It's still all on the blockchain. It's still irrevocable. It's still, in most case, DeFi and decentralized. However, it does help you to reduce some of the risk in your consideration. Okay, the next thing we will talk about is the news. This is very important, okay? You can go to Twitter, you can go to Telegram, you can go to Discord. So each project will have a Telegram usually and or a Discord. And inside those social media things, you will find announcements from the project, from the community. And there's all kinds of announcements like, upgrades, changes, things you need to move your money from here to there because you're not getting any yield anymore. These kinds of updates are quite important, okay? Generally speaking, if you follow the project's Twitter, then you will most likely get the information that you need. And then in the Discord, if you go to the announcements channel, or sometimes they have a Telegram announcements channel, then you can probably get the information you need, but sometimes there's a lot of information, okay, because they're trying to keep attention on their project. And the more they produce, the more they put out, the more people think these people are good and they're working. So sometimes it's hard to filter through all the news, but it's part of the job. Like if you're going to put money into a place and you want, like, say, some APY there, and then there's some changes to the situation and you don't know this, then you're not going to get any APY. Your money's just sitting there doing nothing. So it's important to follow the news and the announcements of the projects that you're covering, as well as some people. Okay, there are some individuals on the blockchain or in Twitter and stuff that announce things that happen. Okay, there's announcements of hacks and of changes and of new projects. So there are individuals that are worth following as well, like key opinion leaders. Okay, now there is Rect and blogs. I'm going to put them kind of together, and so there's like this Rect place where you can go and read articles about how hacks happened in the past. Okay, and this is a good thing because then it gets you an understanding of how bad things can be sometimes, and it kind of sets your mind in a more cautious mindset, because there are some huge hacks, and the Rect is pretty enjoyable to read because the writers are pretty good, they're pretty straightforward, they're pretty witty and so forth. So I definitely recommend reading Rect, or just check them, look for them on Twitter, and you will find it. And then there's like DeFi Safety, where they basically take projects and they evaluate all the aspects of the DeFi project and give it a rating based on how safe it is. Okay. Now again, it's a personalized rating of this community, of this project, but it's pretty well done. Okay, so I would definitely recommend considering these as something you check out. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is phishing. Okay, phishing is very prevalent in crypto. Okay, there's a lot of phishing attacks. Okay, and basically there are two major kinds that I'm going to talk about today. And the first is DMs. Okay, anytime I get a DM from anyone, the first thing I think is it's a scam. But I'm in DeFi and I have I'm an influencer, so a lot of people are messaging me with questions and with projects to look at, or new things to check out. So I have to filter through the DMs. But for the most part, for the normal user, you can consider every DM a scam, and you will be fine for the most part. So if you just think, oh, everybody who DMs me is a scammer, you will probably not get phished. Okay, so there are two kinds of phishing attacks per se. There might be more, but I'm going to talk about the two here. And the first is support style and congratulations style. Okay, so some sort of help or some sort of congratulations, you won. So anytime I see like congratulations or you've been chosen or blah blah blah, I just ignore it. I delete it. It's gone. Okay, I completely ignore it. And then there are support as well. Like when you go into a Discord server or a Telegram and you message and you ask a question like, hey, I need to know how to do this. If someone DMs you and saying, oh, I'm with the team, I can help you, they are a scammer. The teams will never DM you. They will do it in the public space where everybody can see what they're saying. Okay, so you can DM them after they've answered you and you see that, oh, these are the team members, and then sometimes they will ask, DM me, and then you can right click them and DM them, right? But don't accept the advice of anyone who DMs you. Okay, so these are the two important things. Okay, so don't, you're not going to get free money. Okay, and no one's actually going to help you by DMing you. They will do it in the public forum where everybody can see it. Okay, and then we have airdrops. Airdrops are free money, okay, and they are not impossible to get. There are lots of airdrops, and in the past there were an incredible amount of airdrops. Okay, so there are still airdrops happening though. However, they're getting more and more, less and less common. Okay, but there's a lot of offers for airdrops. Okay, like, oh, free mint, oh, free airdrop. Okay, so there's a lot of announcements on social media, and sometimes even in Discords and stuff like that. If you find that a project is announcing an airdrop of some sort, then what I would suggest you do, if you do suspect it might be real, is go to the community, the Discord or the Telegram, and ask there in the public space, and wait until the team members reply. And if they don't reply and they don't say, yes, this is a true airdrop, you can also read the announcements inside the Discords and check, oh, is this a real airdrop or not? Now, that's usually pretty safe, okay? So you can find out if airdrops are real that way, okay? So, but don't click on Twitter airdrops, okay? If you see something on Twitter that tags someone, that tags a project and says, oh, I got so lucky, I got these free tokens, consider it a scam. Maybe look deeper, but most likely it's a scam. Okay. Now there's the last kind of anon in the wallet. So sometimes projects are dropping tokens in people's wallets. Okay. And if you go to if you go to Etherscan, you can see all of the tokens inside your wallet. Okay. If you go to something like DBank or Zapper, they filter the tokens inside the wallet. But if you go to Etherscan, you can see everything inside that wallet. And sometimes they've dropped tokens inside your wallet that when you go to sell or when you go to do something with them, they somehow are able to take other tokens from your wallet. Okay, because when you try to sell or something, the code says, actually, give permission to take his USDC or his ETH, and people just click things like when they pop up, when the MetaMask pops up and stuff like that. So be careful. If there's a token inside your wallet and you don't know how it got there, you can probably ignore it, or you can go to the project that has the token. You can ask questions like, hey, how did I get this token? Why do I have this token in my wallet? and in the public space talk to people. Okay, so that's pretty much it for today. I hope this has been interesting and useful, and I hope you've learned something. And share this with other people, because this is important stuff. Okay, now I will echo the last thing that, like, blockchains are irrevocable. If what you do, consider it like the Wild West. Consider it like you've gone on a cruise. You're out in the middle of nowhere in the ocean. There's no country to protect you. There are no soldiers. Pirates might come. So you're on your own in this sense. You're sailing across the world by yourself. There are safeguards. There are things you can do to protect yourself. And joining a community and going across the ocean as a community is probably safer than going by yourself and clicking on things and doing things and just exploring weird places by yourself, right? So that's pretty much it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.